This is the third video for today, and this one is on the issues Manchester City are facing. Manchester City obviously competing with Chelsea for the Premiership title at the moment, and Manchester City are sitting 6 points behind Chelsea, which at this stage it is quite a lot considering Chelsea haven't lost. This is after 10 games. Manchester City have already lost 2 games, and they've drawn 2 games. Both teams have drawn 2 games. Now, I'll look at the squad first. Joe Hart is the goalkeeper, perfectly fine with that. Bacary Sagna, I think that signing was a complete waste of time. Not to say he's not a good player, but for the wages that he'd be asking, and we've already got Pablo Zabaleta, I think it was a crazy sign to make, especially with financial fair play penalising Manchester City a lot, where they were only able to spend 50 million, and that would also kind of be down to wages as well. And to sign Bacary Sagna on a free transfer for that kind of wages is ridiculous. You'd have been better off keeping Micah Richards at the club than doing that, because Bacary Sagna is now on the kind of wrong side of 30 now, I believe. And although he has been a good player for Arsenal, I don't think, well, he's only 31, but for that to be your backup right back and pay that kind of wages is crazy, completely crazy. Kompany, oh, terrific. Manchester City's biggest problem has been to find a partner for them, and they still haven't done that. It's been so difficult. Pablo Zabaleta, terrific player as well. Fernando was a great signing. Player to play in the hole, to play behind Yaya Toure and Fernandinho if they decide to play one up front. And obviously someone to bring on in the game if they want to kind of keep things tight. Very good player. James Milner, he's a good player. I don't think he's quite up to the task of playing for Manchester City week in, week out. I think it was proved in the Champions League last season when him and Julian Lescott came on against Barcelona, and they both looked well out of their depth. He's a hard-working player and he's a good player, but I don't think he's a top player, in my opinion. Samir Nasri is a player who's kind of almost kind of in the fringes at City at the moment. He kind of comes in and out, and he comes off the bench a lot. But he does well when he plays, but I feel that they probably could part company with him and get someone on the kind of cheaper wage, and someone obviously with good quality for the price that they could get for him. Edin Dzeko, terrific player. Kolarov, terrific player. One of the best left backs in the world in my opinion. Just like Zabaleta, right back. He's a terrific player, fantastic player. Scott Sinclair, a wide player. The only reason I can think of why Manchester City signed him was to do with the homegrown player rule for the Champions League for Europe. Otherwise, I can't see why. Scott Sinclair was doing well at Swansea, but it's a shame that he ended up being signed by Manchester City, because it's stopped him from playing week in, week out, and a player like him needs to play week in, week out. And it's going to be very difficult for him now. And I think surely he should have gone on loan. Willie Caballero, who's obviously competition for Joe Hart, is a good competition for him, and that'll keep him on his toes. So he had a pretty error-strung season last year. Jesus Navas is a great player. Very good at chipping out assists. Needs to get more goals about his game, but he is a very good player. Sergio Aguero, I think, is the only reason Manchester City are only 6 points behind. His goals and his play has really kind of helped the team. He's a top striker. Like I said about Luis Suarez, he's one of the best strikers in the world, and you know when you've got him in your team that you've got a chance of doing something. Frank Lampard, who is on loan from City's feeder team, New York City, which is a team they formed in New York, and he's been a great signing. He's scored goals and he's done well, and he really has been a great signing. Mangala, the player of Manchester City, paid 32 million for it and chased for about a year and a half now, and he really hasn't hit the heights. There was obviously a particularly poor performance against Hull City, and he just hasn't hit the heights. Like a lot of centre backs have tried to put alongside Kompany, he hasn't hit the heights. And for £32 million, like it was said by Charlie Nicholas, you don't get time for that. You have to be ready to go straight into the team. So when Manchester United paid 32 million for Rio Ferdinand from Leeds United, he was ready to go straight into the team. And Mangala just has not hit the heights. David Silva's a terrific player. Gael Clichy, I think they need to part company with him. I think his best days are behind him, and his pace is diminished as well, and that was a big part of his game. I just don't see the point in keeping him around, especially in the wages he's on. Bernardinho's a terrific player. Was a really good signing. When they signed him, I was very impressed by that. Martin Demichelis started to play a bit better last season when he was more protected and he wasn't getting caught out on one-on-ones, because in a one-on-one he's going to be left for dust because he's not got any pace about him at all. But as a defender, he's decent. Richard Wright, I don't think we really need to kind of say too much about that. I mean, the only reason he's there as a third choice goalkeeper. I mean, you ever have to kind of play him, then you have big problems because he is finished, quite frankly. Nastasic, he's a decent player. I think he's worth keeping around. Jovetic has started to kind of get more of a chance now, and he can really do something for them. Boyata is a player I'm disappointed has not been given more of a chance. He has potential, and I think he could potentially even be the player to play alongside Kompany if you give him a run of games, much like Andre Wisdom at Liverpool. But he's never been given that chance. Yaya Toure has been very good this season, but as a lot of people, as we all know, in the summer he was making a lot of complaints and coming out of a lot of stuff, and you can't really kind of forget about that. But as a player, definitely you want him around for his ability. But for the nonsense that went on in the summer, you could have argued that they could have parted Kompany. Very difficult to replace, but with all that stuff, you couldn't really have blamed them if they did decide to do that. Now look at the players on loan. Micah Richards is on loan at Fiorentina, and it was a good loan for Micah Richards. It's a chance for him to try and establish himself somewhere else, because unfortunately he's been pushed well down the pecking order at Manchester City, and it's just not going to happen for him. Negredo went on loan to Valencia, which was a big disappointment for them, because if Sergio Aguero gets injured, and Jovetic is pretty injury prone as well, you've only got Edin Dzeko there, and Negredo's chipping in a lot of goals last season, and it was due to financial fair play they put him on loan there, and the chances is he will go permanent. Karim Rakik is on loan at PSV. He could be a good player for them. He could be a player that could come in and maybe even be that partner for Kompany. He's a big lad, and he's a decent defender, and he's got potential. Remains to be seen. Zucclini is a player they put on loan to Valencia. They signed him in the summer and he's put him straight on loan to Valencia. I don't know if that's a work permit issue or is it to get him used to the European game. I really don't know. John Guidetti is on loan to Celtic. I would think that his days at Manchester City are over. Marcos Lopez is on loan to Lille. It's a good loan move for him. I don't really know too much about him. I guess that he might come back and do something. But yeah, the problem is there's kind of too much of a mismatch. There's a lot of players in there that you could kind of get rid of, and you could get better players in. And financial fair play isn't really kind of restricting them from that point of view if you think about it, because there's a lot of players in high wages you could just get rid of straight away, like the Sangha, like the Clichy, and the likes of even like Nasri and James Milner. You know, they're all kind of in quite high wages, and you could bring in a couple of real quality players. And it's not to say there's not quality in the team, but sometimes you look at what they have in reserve and you kind of wonder, is that it? When they're missing players like Aguero and Yaya Toure and Kompany, they do look sometimes quite ordinary, it has to be said. And that's a big concern. When you're trying to be a top club in Europe, a top club in your respective league, you can't afford to look ordinary. You have to always look like you're one of the best teams, and on their day they are one of the best teams. I just kind of feel that if you were kind of had to get rid of a player for financial fair play, that you would have got rid of Clichy, and you wouldn't have brought Sanya in, and you would have kept Negredo around, because he's going to get the goals, going to fire you on. So domestically, Manchester City, you know, they're still in the chance of winning the title. There's 6 points behind Chelsea at the moment. And as long as they can keep up, they can get a good run of results, and they can kind of maintain that gap, or they can close it down if Chelsea do eventually lose a game, which they will eventually at some point this season. It's in Europe where Manchester City have the biggest problem. They're just not used to Europe. They'll either kind of go they'll kind of either go into it with too much confidence, or they'll play very defensively and get caught out. And that's where they have the problem. There was a game against CSK Moscow, and they played CSK Moscow midweek, and they were 2-0 up in Russia, which was a very good scoreline, but they threw that away and drew 2-2. And in Europe, when you're a top side, you can't afford to do that. and obviously they lost to Bayern Munich as well, and they did win against. Wait till I find it. They did obviously win against. I was trying to think of these teams at the top of your head. They won against. Oh my goodness. Clicking schedules. They won against. No, they haven't won a game in the Champions League. So yeah, I mean it's not good enough. 2 points after 3 games of Champions League is not good enough. Fortunately for them, Roma were hammered by Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich are top of the group with 9 points. Roma are second with 4 points. Manchester City are third with 2 points. They drew against CSK Moscow and they drew against Roma and were beaten by Bayern Munich. It's not good enough. They need to do a lot better. Losing to Bayern Munich, you can understand that, but to draw at home to Roma and draw away to CSK, especially when you're 2-0 up against CSK, is not good enough. And they really need to step up in Europe, and that is going to be the defining factor that keeps them from competing with Chelsea, because at Chelsea, obviously, financial fair play it's okay for them because they've already kind of built their squad, and fortunately for them, Paris Saint-Germain took 50 million and signed David Luiz, and that one will baffle me till for a very, very long time. And then Everton paid 27 million for Lukaku. So that certainly helped, but their squad is set, and Manchester City have the problem that financial fair play is preventing them from doing that. But they can't blame financial fair play when they've got some players there that simply aren't good enough, and they're persistent with them and they're on high wages. And that's the problem. They have to kind of part company with these players, and then bring in some better players. The first 11, they probably got a better first 11 than Chelsea, but as a squad, Chelsea got a better squad. And defensively, Chelsea are excellent. And that's where all these other clubs are falling short. That's where Arsenal falls short. It's where Manchester City falls short. It's where Manchester United falls short massively. Liverpool falls short. Everton falls short. And Tottenham falls short. And a lot of it's to do with styles of play, and a lot of it's to do with personnel. But you've got to try and bridge that gap somehow. And the way to do that would be to get more goals, or try and find a way to be better defensively. Manchester City, for some reason, have had such a problem to find a partner for Vincent Kompany, and they'll always have a weakness until they can find a partner for him. And that's kind of the main issue. The main issue is that they don't have and never have had a partner that can play alongside Kompany. Whether it's one of these young lads, whether Mangala is going to come good, or it's going to be Nastasic, because they can't rely on Demichelis. Demichelis has maybe got 1 or 2 seasons left, but they can't rely on him. They need to get somebody in, or they need to have someone that's there. I mean, obviously for 32 million, they need to get some sort of return from Mangala, and a couple of good performances, and he could obviously gain confidence, and he could play well alongside Kompany. But for Porto, he was never really that impressive. He obviously had potential and he has ability, but can he cut it week in, week out at the top level in Europe and in the league? It remains to be seen. If Manchester City can sort that problem out, then they should be able to compete better in Europe, because at least when they're not playing so well, they're not going to be looking like they're going to concede a goal. But they'll have someone alongside Kompany to take the strain off, and someone that can defend. So then the likes of Yaya Toure and Fernandinho can get up in support of your David Silvas, your Jesus Navas's, and Aguero and Dzeko's of this world. But that's basically, I mean, they're not having a disastrous season, but in Europe it's a bit of a disaster at the moment. They're only 2 points behind Roma, but 2 points from 3 games isn't good enough, and they must beat CSK Moscow. Now obviously they beat CSK Moscow and Roma lose to Bayern Munich, they're ahead of Roma. But let's not forget, Manchester City have to play Bayern Munich again, and let's play Roma again. So it's very interesting. It's certainly going to be very interesting to see if they can get out of the group and to close the gap in Chelsea. But that's a bit. I mean, obviously things aren't disastrous for them, but there's a potential if they kind of get a run of poor results. If they get an injury to Aguero, an injury to Yaya Toure, the potential is there for them to struggle. They struggled before when Yaya Toure was at the African Cup of Nations. They can't afford for that to happen again. They need to be challenging for the title this season, and they need to push on in Europe. They need to be looking at trying to get to the quarterfinals and semi-finals. They need to really push on in the Champions League, and it's something that's been a very slow process with them, and they need to get over that. They need to be better in Europe. Okay, well that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and we'll hopefully have some videos for some Champions League coverage for you. Okay, thank you for watching.